in the last couple of years in the recommender systems community, the privacy and bias and fairness issues are increasingly getting important. And that also has effects on news recommendation as well.
Hello and welcome everyone to Value from AI, where we explore the latest advances in AI technology for digital publishers. And we speak with experts from both the business side and the technical side to give you a full overview of everything you need to know when it comes to personalization and recommender systems. My name is Lien Michiels and I'm your host today. And I'll be talking with Özlem Özgöbek about news recommender systems and fake news and all of these other really interesting things that Özlem is working on. So welcome, Özlem. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
All right. So let's start with a little introduction of who you are and what you've been doing in the space of news recommender systems. So how does that sound?
Yeah. Thanks. So my name is Özlem Özgöbek, as you introduced, and I work as an associate professor in the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I'm located in Trondheim, Norway. And I've been working with news recommender systems. I started working with them when I was doing my PhD. And I'm originally from Turkey. So that's what I do and where I am.
Cool. How did you get from Turkey to Norway? When did you move?
So it's been like 8-9 years ago, the first time I arrived here. So I was doing my PhD in Turkey, and I got a scholarship to visit an institution abroad. So I came to Trondheim, to NTNU, and then since then our collaboration is going on and has continued, and I decided to live in here.
That's really great. When I was doing some research before the podcast, I noticed that you actually teach a course in Norwegian, right?
Yeah, I do that, but I mean, it's good to learn the local language when you live in a place. But of course, it took some time until I get to the level where I can teach. But also, what I'm teaching in Norwegian is introduction to programming, so it is not as difficult to teach in Norwegian because most terms and everything are already in English for programming, for Python programming. So yeah, I try to do my best.
I think that's very impressive. I don't think I would feel comfortable teaching in like a second language. So wow, really cool.
Thanks.
So you teach, you're an assistant professor, but you also do research?
Yes. So I actually teach 2 courses. One of the other courses I'm teaching is recommender systems, and that is more for the master students. So also my research covers research in recommender systems and also more about news domain, such as fake news detection, and also some other aspects of recommender systems, such as privacy in recommender systems, and also recommender systems in education.
Cool. So we'll get into each of these topics later, but there's one thing we haven't touched upon yet, and that is your all of the community initiatives that you're involved with, because you're one of the main organizers of INRA, which is a workshop on news analytics. And then you're also one of the founding members of Women in Rexis, right?
I'm not a founding member in Women in Rexis, but I'm one of the organizers for the last 2 years, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great initiative, and I'm really proud of being a part of it. So Women in Rexis is organized in conjunction with the main Rexis or Recommender Systems Conference, the ACM Rexis Conference, and our aim is to make the women in working on recommender systems more visible and give them the credibility that they deserve, because there are really amazing women working on recommender systems and in our community. And INRA is our news recommendation and analytics workshop that has been running for 10 years now. So we are also building, or we have built a small community around that as well. So it's really good to be a part of these two initiatives.
Wow, that's really nice. I didn't know that INRA had been going on for so long. Back in like 10 years ago, were people already doing news recommendation, or was it more like news analytics back then?
It was already news recommendations. Yes, people
Okay,
have been
cool.
working on it, but of course it advanced a lot, and
Mhm.
now we have different technologies. We have language models, for example, to analyze the content of news, and we have all the other more powerful techniques for news recommendations. But we still also have challenges as well.
Cool. Okay, I'll ask you a bunch more questions about that later. But maybe to like kick things off, I really like to know what got you so like interested in news initially. Where did it start?
Yeah, so it actually has two main reasons. First of all, of course, it was the research group I involved with was already working on news, so that obviously has an effect. But the second reason that I kept working on it is because I think media and news is a very important thing in our lives that drives how society is shaped, what people think, and I think it is very important for individuals and for society in general. So I find it important.
I think I agree with you. It's also one
Yeah.
of the reasons I love working on news. It's something that all of us touch most days of our lives, right? From a certain age, you start reading a newspaper or articles online. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
really, really
exactly. And also what type of news you read, because I mean, as humans, we are all biased. So journalists are also biased, and how they present news may be biased or are biased maybe. So then what type of news we consume, what we read can convince us for certain things. And we, of course, journalists would like to be as neutral as possible in many cases, but sometimes that's not the case.
cool. Like, do you have any like research on that about like the biases in journalists? Because that's an area that I'm not at all familiar with.
Yeah, no, I don't research on that directly, but even though I think it's an important aspect, my research has been focused more on first of all, news recommendations and analytics. So understanding how news articles contain certain things, or for example, how news are consumed, the users' behaviors on news. For example, do people read more entertainment news at the weekends than it is in the weekdays? First of all, the analytics part focuses on understanding the user's consumption of news. And also a recommendation part is actually about finding the most suitable news content for the user, because if you look at the online news, it's like hundreds of news are published in an hour. So most of the things that, if you check the news in the morning, for example, most of the things you see on the main page will not be there in the evening. So there's a huge flow of news and huge change of news all the time. And I mean, we as individuals, we don't have enough time to check the news all the time. And also, this is just one web page, one newspaper. But if you think about the social media, if you think about all the other different news channels, maybe services like Google News, the importance of news recommendation starts to appear, I think, because we don't have time to go through everything, and then we want to also get informed about the most important things.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very difficult problem to solve, exactly because it's such a dynamic environment where things change all the time. And I guess one of the like popular solutions to that is just send the user tons of push notifications for everything that is happening in the world. But of course, that doesn't make the user very happy, I think, to be confronted with all these push notifications. So yeah, I think that is one of the areas, for example, where we're looking into personalization, like seeing what news should be pushed to the user when, and when should we not. Mostly that, when should we not?
Yes, and also another important topic in here, I think, is, some newspapers have certain political directions, and if a person likes to get only those opinions, maybe the news recommender system shouldn't be offering all the same type of views or same type of articles. So that has been a debate, because do we really want to provide the user news articles that they like, or do we want them to actually do we want to present them the diversity and different opinions, so they can also start questioning things, maybe get a different view on the same topic? So there are a lot of those discussions going on as well.
Absolutely. I think we are having lots of those discussions as well. But I wonder, from your position in academia, who do you feel should be involved in those discussions? Who do you talk to? Which people are concerned with this, I guess?
Well, at least in here in Norway, journalists have a great interest in the artificial intelligence and these technologies. Both from from many perspectives. Both they sometimes see this as a useful tool for themselves, but also they are really interested in for the readers to use these technologies. So we are mostly work with journalists, or also we have some collaborations with departments of journalism, for example, media and journalism studies. So sometimes communications departments, people from there are interested. So yeah, we have and of course the technology people, like the people developing language models, or so it's a mix of people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, given that news touches so many of our lives every day, that there's a lot of people involved when you're having these kinds of discussions about where news should be going, I guess, because news is increasingly moving online. And then this whole conversation about responsible news personalization starts to emerge, of course, because before it was, I guess, mostly the journalist's job to curate the physical paper newspaper that showed up to your doorstep every morning. But now there's people like you and me in between who decide what people get to see.
Yeah, that's true. And also, as you may know, these systems are not completely fair or unbiased.
No, indeed.
So we also have to consider these aspects of machine learning and artificial intelligence that
Absolutely. I think it's great that there's so much work being done on making them more fair. I think myself, I'm working on it, but you too, right? You were working on fake news and privacy and biases.
That's true. So I'm really interested in the automated detection of fake news. So as you know, fake news is a growing problem, and even though there are initiatives for individuals, like how can you understand if a news is fake or not, the problem is getting bigger and bigger, because social media, things spread so fast on social media. And also fake news, or sometimes as called as disinformation and misinformation based on the intention. This type of news can be generated intentionally to deceive people. And it's important to catch these disinformation or misinformation. I prefer to call fake news in general. I believe it's really important to catch these as soon as they emerge. So they are not out there in the social media spreading very fast and doing the damage.
No, absolutely, I agree. And so how do you feel about, we should detect them as early as possible, but then whose responsibility is it to make sure that nobody is shown this content? Do we need the involvement of the social media companies for that, or how do you imagine this?
I think the social media companies' involvement is definitely important, but also the journalists and media companies' involvement is important, because fake news is not only a problem of social media. It can also find its way to the newspapers that we trust and think that everything we read is true. But sometimes, journalists are also human, and they can also be tricked by this fake news. So there has been some issues, even in Norway, like a piece of false information made its way into one of the really trusted newspapers, and then they of course removed it when they realized that it's not it's fake. But I mean, people already interacted with it, and there were discussions around it. And also we have examples, like worldwide examples of how fake news can affect companies economically. For example, if suddenly someone just writes that an important CEO of a big company died or something, suddenly the stock markets or stock values for that company can drop drastically.
Yeah.
And that's such an immediate effect. It happens in a couple of minutes. That fixing it doesn't happen so fast, and also its effects is not that fast when it's fixed.
Yeah, it's weird how things can spread so easily and virally when they're first released. It's almost like a real virus contagion spread. But then if you want to retract a piece, you cannot like retract everything that has evolved around it. So I think that's also a really interesting problem, right? Because then fake news is initially spread, but how do you stop the contagion?
Yeah, exactly. There are works going on, especially for social media. For example, there are those people who act like the main nodes of spread. So if you kind of prevent those people sharing the fake news, you can slow it down, because those people are really the ones that have maybe millions of followers, and they accelerate the spread.
Yeah.
So there are several approaches, several ideas, but we don't have a final solution yet.
Oh, cool. But really interesting. It's almost like this idea of controlling the fire, as they do now with forest fires, I guess, where you allow it to spread, but very locally a little bit, and try to make sure that it just does not catch on too big of an area. No, really interesting. Back to something you said a little bit earlier about the detection of fake news, when even trusted news publishers can be fooled into spreading it. How do you go about that? If even they cannot catch it, how can machines and AI catch it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And as I said, we don't have an ultimate answer for that. But we are hoping, of course, that the machines can help the journalists at least, because also there is the risk of stopping the wrong content, not fake news, but you can suddenly start stopping opinions or a content that is not actually fake. So these systems, especially if we are talking about an automated filtering system, then this may really go wrong. So we have to be really careful about this. We shouldn't really filter out people's opinions, but maybe we should warn the journalists or people about that the content, it looks suspicious and it may be wrong. So yeah, as I said, we don't have the ultimate solution yet, but it's I think that makes it a really good research topic. There are so many challenges, and there are so many things to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's also what I think Instagram and Facebook are doing a lot. I remember seeing a post on Instagram a while ago, I think a year ago or so, about COVID, and then they had this little banner that said like, "Be careful, with this information, we could not verify that it is true. I think that's really good indeed. It puts the responsibility back with the person. So it's not the AI making the decision, it's just the AI telling you in a supportive role. Maybe you want to have a closer look, question the sources, the content, and if you still believe it, that's fine, but that's your decision and it's not the AI's decision. So more of a supportive role than the real filtering role. Or do you think we should be evolving towards the filtering role in the future?
I think it depends. Like if we can 100% detect that something is not right, then I think it's okay to filter it. But can we really be 100% sure? That is the question. And also, given a news article, sometimes not everything in an article is wrong. Sometimes it's just one or two sentences that has false claims. And also, so it's the problem can easily get very complicated. But as I said, if we are sure that there is a claim or a piece of information that is 100% sure, I think it's totally okay to filter it out. But also another challenge is if something is happening right now, an event is happening right now, how can we, because it's not in our databases, or the event is just right now happening, so we don't really, the only way to check if it is true or not is actually to be there. So if you think like that, actually social media is also a very powerful tool for us to be able to check if a claim or an event is really happening. So it has both these pros and cons, and I think it's a really interesting challenge to try to use it in the best possible way and try to deliver the people news and events in the best or the most correct way.
No, I think that's very interesting that you say that, because indeed it's easy to paint social media as this evil that is breaking news and allowing the spread of fake news. But at the same time, indeed, it also allows the spread of true news that we should know and care about that otherwise may not have reached us. For example, I learned about the floodings in Pakistan recently only through social media. I wouldn't have known about it based on any of the traditional news sources that I consume daily. So I was really surprised by that, and it was very powerful, I think.
Yes, yeah, I think so too. So yeah, I've been looking into different AI models trying to detect fake news, but it's very difficult. We get some the results, but also implementing them in the real world setting is also another challenge. So then I think it's also the companies, social media companies, or media companies in general, it's also their responsibility, I think. So and also it's a great way of collaboration with them, like starting collaborations with them. Yeah.
So everyone who hears this, who is a news publisher, who cares about fake news, maybe reach out to Özlem after the episode for a collaboration. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be nice. But also there are so many other researchers around the world working on this. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you know of any tools in existence right now that publishers could already start using to like work more around fake news, and if they are maybe spreading something that is not entirely true?
I saw some tools. I cannot recall their names right now, but if you search about it, I think there comes a few tools, but they are not like 100% still, of course. But I mean, this effort has been going on for a while, so I think it's time that we start getting some the results of people's works. And yeah, as I said, I think I have seen at least one tool that claims that they can help with that, but I'm not sure how well it is working, or I haven't tried it myself, so I don't know.
Maybe one of our listeners has used one already, and if you have, please reach out to us after the podcast episode and let us know how you like it, and maybe that can inform some new research directions for Özlem then.
Yeah, definitely. It would be nice to know what is out there. It's sometimes impossible to find everything out as just one individual. So we need collaborative effort to find things out.
Cool. No, that's really interesting. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about news recommender systems in general, because as you said, you've been an organizer of INRA for 10 years, thereabouts. So you must have been one of the first people working on news recommendation. How do you feel it has evolved in those years?
Yeah, so it's I'm not sure if I'm one of the first people, by the way, but yeah, I'm looking into this for a while now. So how it evolved, I think it's mostly the techniques we used have evolved a lot. So I've been actually exploring different methods to use in the news recommender systems. I've been exploring some semantic methods, for example. I've been exploring some machine learning, and I've been exploring with some rule-based systems, and also the combination of these. And of course, lately in the recommender systems domain, deep learning methods are kind of taking over, as it is probably in every other AI-related domain. So yeah, I think, and also what has changed since then is the availability of the data sets. Data sets are really important for our research, because that's the only way that we can develop and test things. So when I started working on news recommender systems, we didn't really have access to good data sets in news domain. It was the same with fake news. And then after a while, of course, people realized maybe the potential in this area of research, and there started to come news-related data sets. Also at NTNU, we have published one news data set in collaboration with one of the local newspapers in Trondheim. So I think these are the things that has changed a lot since then. And also the people's attention to news recommendations has increased a lot. That's actually something I'm really, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm really observing. Like when we started organizing INRA, people working on news recommendations were not so many. But now you can see news recommendations and news recommender systems related research and applications in so many different places. It's increasing.
Absolutely. I'm always amazed at how many people are at the INRA workshops, the times that I was able to attend, and are actually working on the subject. It's always so nice to meet everyone and talk about the things we are doing and learn. I think that whole aspect of it, the community around it, is really great. With INRA, you're also organizing the News Images Challenge, I think, or is that another community initiative?
Actually, they are quite related, I would say, and also my colleagues that I'm co-organizing the INRA together with, they are also involved in news images. So we are kind of we kind of became the same community of organizers for both. And I think News Images Challenge is also very interesting. We are organizing this for some years now as well, and it's in the Media Eval community. So Media Eval is the media evaluations, multimedia evaluations. So if you
can you tell our listeners maybe a little bit more about what the News Images Challenge entails? What are the different challenges that people can be working on?
Yeah, sure. So within the media eval, there are a lot of different challenges, and news images is one of them. And with the news images, we focus on the relation between the news and the news articles and the images accompanying them. So this is a challenge that we want to understand more about the relation between the text and the image. Because when you read the news articles, usually you see images, and sometimes they are the reasons that we click on certain news. And we want to explore how are they connected, if they really give us clues about the content. Are they pictures or images from an event area, or are they just some images from stock photography or something? So we want to understand what is the relation, and also how it affects the users. And also when we use the images in news recommender systems, does that make it better or worse? Or yeah, so we try to identify this connection between the text and images.
That is really interesting, because I know that at Netflix, for example, in the video streaming, video on demand domain, that Netflix personalizes the images for each of the shows depending on what you like more. So for me, they will probably show like the female lead actor in the image, and for someone else, they might show the male lead. So yeah, I think a similar thing could definitely be interesting for news as well.
Yeah, but in the challenge, we have a news article or a URL to the article maybe, and then there is the accompanying image. And we remove this link in between, so we don't say which image belongs to which text. And then the challenge is they try to reestablish this link. Can we actually match the correct text and the correct image?
I am very curious about the results, and also what features they use to come up with that result, with the optimally performing result. It's probably a bunch of things we would not expect. Do you have any intermediate results already, or should we wait for the conclusion of the challenge?
So actually, this has been running for a couple of years now, as I said, and we have results from previous years. And also we had, in the past years, we had the second task in the challenge about the recommendations, like how recommendations are affected by the images. Yeah, I mean, there are, as you said, there are different approaches. So you can definitely go and check the results. We have published a paper actually on this, like a joint paper with all of our authors or the challenge participants, summarizing their results. But we are looking forward to the results this year. We also have changed the data set this year. We expanded it a little bit. Now we have more data. So let's see if the results is gonna get better, or if we will gain more understanding on the relation as well.
Okay, so I will definitely include the link to the paper about past year's results in the comments under the workshop or the podcast, sorry, so that people can check it out. I'm really curious, so I will definitely keep an eye on it. I think another thing that I wanted to ask you, given how long you've been in the field, like what are the biggest challenges you think that we're facing right now in news recommender systems? We have, of course, fake news, which we already talked about, but are there other things?
Yeah, I mean, there are many things, of course. So one of them, of course, as you mentioned, like if or how or if fake news is affecting news recommender systems. The second or another one is, for example, if we can improve the recommendations, news recommendations, and how is always an open question. So can we actually improve the recommendations, and how can we do that? And also, as I said, like diversity of news that we are presenting to the readers. Some readers may not like this, but is it really important that they should like it, or should we really present the diversity of news to the users? And also in the last couple of years in the recommender systems community, the privacy and bias and fairness issues are increasingly getting important. And that also has effects on news recommendation as well.
So,
for example, the privacy issues may be really one of the challenges actually, because if you look at what type of news articles a person gets recommended, you can learn a lot about that person.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also one of those things that is stopping a bunch of media companies from making more data sets public. I guess. So what are your views on privacy? Like, how much can we learn about a user from their past reading behavior, or what should we do to get more public data sets?
Yeah, user interaction data is always tricky to get because it contains a lot of personal data, or even if it doesn't directly contain any personal data, you may infer a lot of personal information. For example, when looking at what a person have been reading, you can get a very clear idea of that person's political views, maybe sexual orientation, or so many things actually that we cannot, maybe the location of the person that you can easily get hold on to. Because, for example, if I'm reading news about Trondheim, but not about a city in France, for example, then you obviously can see where I am located. And maybe my age group, my gender. So there are a lot of information that can leak out of what we through our actions and through our reading, news reading profile.
So if I'm hearing this as an editor, I would be so afraid to make my data set public. So do you think there's anything we can do about that?
I mean, the publicly available data sets, they are anonymized. So anonymization, even though it's not like the ultimate solution, it definitely provides some level of protection. So there are already data sets that is publicly available, and that includes user interaction data, but they are anonymized. So also there is research going on that direction as well, like how can we actually make these data sets, but also not only data sets, the systems actually more private, because it is also a question of the systems and their users, because and not only news domain as well, like for example, by looking at what movies you've been watching on Netflix, I can probably tell a lot about you.
Oh, true. I feel like there's always this tension, or at least for me, between, let's take the classical example of gender. Either so you're not allowed to have it in your data set. Some people say it's not good that we have the explicit attribute in there, but then you're also unable to measure if your system is biasing towards the gender of the user with one or several of its features. But then on the other hand, you have the people who say we should have it, that's me, so that we can correct for these biases in the data set. What is your view on this? Because I feel it's like biasy and privacy are maybe at tension here, because on the one hand, you may have the right to privacy, to not disclose your gender, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that we are not biasing results towards you, for which I feel like we may need your gender. So
yeah, it's a bit tricky. And actually, if a recommender system is biased with a specific gender, for example, if it generalizes that, for example, women like romantic comedies, and if I'm a woman who doesn't like a romantic comedy, then that's not good for the system, right? Like it's not a good quality recommendation. So it's also it should be able to. So this is bias, and how the systems are biased, therefore not generating either good recommendations, or they maybe reveal information about people. So even though all these privacy bias and fairness issues are really entangled, and we have separate research directions for all of this. So yeah, it's tricky. I mean, we want to get good recommendations that suits us, but we also don't want the system to reveal our private information. But also there are research going on this. I'm actually also working on privacy in recommender systems. So it is possible to make the system not to reveal anything about the person, but still generate good recommendations. And I mean, it's an ongoing research, of course, nothing is perfect, but there are definitely ways of trying to do that. For example, one way of doing that may be to modify the data a little bit. So we modify the data in a way that we cannot infer anything private about the user. We, for example, inject some extra data about a user, and we still get good or accurate recommendations, but we cannot really infer anything private about the user. So there are ways of doing that.
Interesting. I should really read the paper that you're referring to. Is it published already, or is it still ongoing?
No, there are already existing works that I'm also not part. Like I can definitely provide you a couple of papers.
Great. I'm looking forward to my reading list after this podcast. So, like, what are you think are maybe the biggest, I guess, privacy threats, but also biases that we can encounter in news recommender systems?
Yeah, I mean, there are different types of biases. For example, popularity bias is one of them. And that is not only specifically for news recommender systems, but in general. For example, if a news article has been read a lot, then the recommender system tends to recommend that article even more. So it's already a popular article and it gets even more popular. So this is just one of the issues that we are trying to find a balance between the different types of news articles or different items in general in recommender systems. So for example, on e-commerce recommender systems, let's say on Amazon, there are millions of items that is for sale, right? And only a very small fraction of these items are actually viewed by the people. So then the recommender system shouldn't really ignore the ones that people have never looked. So we should try to give all the items or all the news articles an equal chance to be seen. And we have to give them an equal chance of to be recommended. And that may be challenging because there are also so many items available by items. As I said, this could be news articles, this could be shopping items, this could be books or movies or music. But it's really important that the recommender system doesn't just improve the popularity of certain items and push the others back. So that's one of the important challenges.
So what are some of the biggest areas you've focused on, attributes of a user that we really might want to protect when we're doing a news recommendation? Is it their location, or are there other things that we might want to keep from leaking?
I think we would like to keep all the private information private. Like
so what kind of information are we talking about then when you say private information?
Yeah, I mean, this could be actually this could be perceived differently by different people, but when I talk about privacy, I usually the first things that comes into my mind is gender and location. Of course there is more, but I think these are the most obvious ones. And also as I mentioned earlier, the data sets are really important for us in academia because we don't have any products that we can collect data from. Therefore, we need to work with the existing data sets. And the existing publicly available data sets usually have those information of gender and location where we can test our ideas. So far in my research, I've been also focusing on location and gender and occupation. But there is, of course, much more different types of private information that can be inferred. But in my research, I've been focusing on these mostly because they are the easiest to test. And also, you know, if you find a good way of protecting one private information, then it's also easy to apply it to others, maybe.
No, absolutely. Super interesting. And so you talked earlier about one possible strategy for privacy-centric recommendation systems, let's say, so to add some noise to the data so that the attribute is protected. Are there other areas that people are looking into? Other techniques?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There are so many. There are ways of trying to make the recommender system, the model itself, a bit more private. Of course, there is a connection to the security aspect as well. Differential privacy applications can be one of the other privacy protecting methods. It's possible to, you know, recommendations is both about predicting, but also they are about ranking. So there may also be some ways of altering altering these to protect the privacy. So yeah, there are so many different ways. It's really wide research domain, I would say, with a lot of different ideas and applications. Yeah.
I guess that's really good because it's also a very important research domain. I think something that we all care about. I don't think any of us would like anyone to find out about our location or our gender or our occupation without us giving them the permission to do so.
Yeah, I mean, in general, data protection is, you know, there is this data protection regulations in Europe, GDPR. So, I mean, there are so many loose ends, and I'm really happy that with GDPR also the authorities started to think about this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not, of course, we are looking into the technological aspect, but also there is the aspect that the leaders or the rule makers that also has to think about. And also I want to mention that I think that's one of the reasons that of the growing interest of recommender systems and the privacy in recommender systems. We also in the past we got a lot of interest from the law domain. We had participants from IT law department, for example. So it's really an interdisciplinary community as well, and we really like to get this perspective from other domains because computers are everywhere now. Artificial intelligence is in every product, every service that we use, and it is not only about the technology and what we can do, but it's also about regulations, it's about law, it's about society. So it's about psychology, it's about sociology. So we really need these other views and other types of understandings to solve certain problems, I think.
Yeah, I think as a technological community, we are coming to terms with the fact that our artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions have impact on the real world. And as you said, it's so important that we involve people from all sorts of disciplines who have more experience, I would say, than we do with dealing with humans and the complex systems that are societies, and think and talk about how to legislate these systems, but also how they should function, what we touched upon earlier with, do we want diversity or do we not want it? Should we force it upon the user? When should we force it upon the user? Always, not always. All of these are really big questions that I don't think we can solve on our own. So it's really great to see that there's so much interest from other domains as well, and that we can all work together in an interdisciplinary way. And in that way, I think have a really big impact on the way technology is used in our society, right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Cool. Maybe because we've been talking for a while, time has really flown by. As like a last topic that I really wanted to touch upon once again was this Women in Rexis initiative that you're working on. Could you tell us a little bit more about the kind of stuff that you organize, maybe how and when it started as well?
Yeah, so it started I don't know, 3-4 years ago, I think, and I'm involved in the last 2 years. So as I said, it is organized within the ACM Recommender Systems Conference, ACM Rexis, and the Rexis conference. It is organized in a different continent every year. So this year it was in America, it was in US, in Seattle, and I think next year it will be in Singapore. So it's moving around. Therefore, Women in Rexis is moving all around the globe with the Rexis conference. And we usually have an early breakfast in one of the conference days where we gather and just, meet and greet and talk to each other, maybe do some networking and mingling. And we invite to this breakfast everyone who identifies themselves as women. And for the first time this year, we also started the outstanding paper in recommender systems. And then we asked that, okay, if you have if the first author as a woman, you can apply. And we also gathered a small program committee to look at these papers. They are already published papers, but what we wanted to do is really to make these good work a bit more visible to the community. So they are journal papers that has been published, and we gave them a selected 6 of them the possibility to come and present it in the Women in Rexis track of the conference. Other than that, we have we also have awarded these women with the free registration to the conference.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And we also last year, because of COVID, we couldn't meet in person in the conferences for some time now. So last year we started these digital keynote series that started 1 month before the Rexis conference. It is still in connection to the conference, and they are open to everyone. We just share the Zoom link for the participants, and then we invite 4 keynote speakers that are women in recommender systems. So we also received really great feedback, and also it was really good to listen to those women who are working on recommender systems domain for some time. They have certain achievements, they have really interesting work and publications, and also we asked them to share their challenges as a woman in their career in this domain, because I think most women are still not very comfortable in being in computer science and in as the minority. Unfortunately, we are still the minority. but yeah, I think it's really good, the keynote series Women in Rexes, and we also want to continue in the coming years. So you can definitely keep an eye. We are happy to have more people listening and participating. Yeah.
Are the recordings available actually from this year's series of keynotes by Women in Rexes?
No, because we haven't really planned it, and we have recorded 2 out of 4 keynote speeches this year, but we are not sure how to publish them yet. And for the next year, we will definitely arrange it.
Okay, great, because I've really enjoyed them. So it would be great if some of our listeners could listen to the keynotes as well. I think it's great, like you said, it all starts with visibility. That is where it all begins, just getting the work out there in front of people. Because I heard that in other fields of computer science, there's also this issue apparently with citations, where the works of women are cited much less than the work of their fellow men, for probably just this reason, visibility. There's not enough visibility for their work. So I think what you're doing is really amazing. Thank you for that. I hope to see you do much more of it in the future. I guess this is a wrap for this episode of Value from AI. If you have any questions or want to leave a comment about this episode, then you can do so on Twitter. And I hope you'll stay tuned for the next episode as well. Thank you, Özlem, for being here with me today. It was so interesting.
Yeah, thank you for the really nice and interesting chat.
All right, cool.
Yeah, thanks for this.
See you soon.